Hi family, welcome back. Just take a look around, click subscribe if you like my channel, and then we can continue with this thing. Giving a few seconds to do that. Okay, now I'm back. Today I want to talk about something which I kind of don't understand why it's even controversial, but apparently it is. So I'm going to talk about child support. As someone who has received child support, I kind of want to look at it from the mother's perspective, but I also want to look at it from the father's perspective, given that I have talked to a few friends who are paying child support, and learned quite a few things that I had never thought about. Okay, so let's start with what exactly is child support. So child support is what is paid to the parent who has physical custody of the child, and it is paid by the parent who does not live with the child. So you can be 50-50, where the child lives with one parent for a few days and lives with the other parent for a few days. And then you can also have a case where the child lives with one parent most of the time and visits the other parent, or the other parent visits. And then you can have some cases where the child lives with one parent and the other parent doesn't know whatever. I'm using parents because people tend to think that child support is a father thing. I know that's majority of the cases, but no, it's not. Sometimes it's mothers who leave the children with the fathers, and so there are very many different ways that this can go. So I'm going to use parent most of the time. So except when I'm speaking about something that's specific to men. Okay, so um, child support can be agreed between the parents. If you have an amicable separation, you can have a good agreement where you agree with each other, and it's a matter of, okay, I'm going to pay the insurance, I'm going to give you half the rent, I'm going to pay this, I'm going to pay that, and that's it. You agree between yourselves. Um, and some other people, it goes through courts. Now, the advantage of the amicable agreement is everybody's happy, because you will discuss it and it will be, no, I don't like it like this, but okay, let's add this, let's add this. If you can reach an amicable agreement, that's better. Now, the danger with it is sometimes it can be amicable at the beginning, and then it reaches a point and something happens and it stops being amicable. um, the biggest thing that I've heard from a few people that I talked to in my research for this, I actually did research for this because I have my own issues with child support, so I didn't want it to influence this video, and I actually wanted to have an objective video because I think this is quite an important topic. Okay, so one of the things is, some people, they break up, they decide, okay, let's have an amicable agreement, and then the minute one partner is in a relationship, the partner who is not in a relationship, or the other one decides now. So either, okay, I'm paying too much, or the new partner decides, I don't like what you and your ex agreed on. This is no, you're paying her way too much, or you're paying him way too much, and or the visitations are too many. So then it just starts being a bit um, of a conflict. However, the other thing you can do when you have an amicable agreement is to go to court or to a lawyer and sign a document, a legal document, putting everything that you have agreed on in paper. So now, whether you are on speaking terms or not, whatever you had agreed about the child still remains on ground zero. Okay? So the other thing is going to court, which is what ends up happening in majority of the cases. So what happens is, sometimes parents just can't agree. I know we'd like to think that we are reasonable humans. Oh, just hurt my leg. Okay. I know we'd like to think that we're reasonable humans, but think about it like this: relationships are emotional. And when you break up, sometimes, I mean, there are so many circumstances. So you have cases where the man decides, I never wanted a child. I was in this for the sex, not for the children. Or you have cases where the woman decides, listen, I didn't want this child anyway. I got pregnant. I wanted an abortion. There is no abortion available. So if you want the child, keep the child. Otherwise, I give the child up for adoption or something. Um, or, basically, now there's a child. The child is living with one of the parents. And the other parent decides that, listen, you wanted this child, so keep the child. Or a divorce has happened, and then the parent who is left with the children, all of a sudden it's the parent who is not left with the children doesn't want to pay. I personally think that you should pay. I genuinely think that this should be a law in every single country where if you have a child and you're not living with that child, you should be paying a small amount. I will talk later about how this amount, I think it should be calculated. But I genuinely think that you should be paying for two reasons. The first reason is no matter how rich the parent who has the child is, and they probably sometimes don't need the money, because I keep seeing this on social media quite a lot, where women say, "Oh, just work hard and." Okay, so oh God, where was I? My kid just came busting into the room, and then I had to pause the video. Now I've lost my train of thought. Anyway, okay, let's just talk about. Okay, so then there's the separation, and I think that you should be paying no matter how wealthy the other parent is. I see a lot on social. Oh, that's where I was. I see a lot on social media when a woman asks, "Okay, how do I start going about child support?" Majority of the women come, oh, don't even bother with that. Oh, please, do you just take care of your child? Assume that he's dead. What would you have done if the man was dead? Just work hard and ignore the fact that he exists. I'm against this. I'm against this for two reasons. One, the child deserves to be taken care of by both parents. I don't think it has to be monetary. I genuinely don't think that. I think if you can't afford it, then come with something. Bring something to the table. I will be buying books. I will be taking the child for 5 hours on the weekends. I will be, just find something that you can do to help, for the simple reason that I don't think that we should normalize the single parenthood. I genuinely don't think it's one thing to be a single parent. It's quite another to be a single parent and left in an island. I don't think that's normal, and I don't think we should normalize it. I think it's something that, especially in Kenya, people are starting to normalize it so much that now it's reached a point where it's no longer, it's become like a lifestyle. It's become like, okay, let me deliberately do this. What we're not understand. Of course, I'm also totally against all these people who everything that goes wrong in society is the fault of single parents. So don't even get me started on those ones. But I just think we need to give the children a chance to understand both sides of their heritage, their father's side, the mother's side. Of course, if there's abuse, if there's other things, if there's abuse on the children, or if there are danger signs that this person can hurt the children, or stuff like that, then that's a different case. But not a case of, he left me, so I don't want him to have anything to do with my child, or she left me, I don't want her to have anything to do with the child. You are the one who was left. Whether the person's, sometimes the only problem with the child is the fact that you're attached to the child. And that's the reason why sometimes when children grow up and they're adults, all of a sudden the parents show up and like, oh, where was he when I was suffering with this child? Now all of a sudden the child is 18 and he's here. Yes, because now you're not part of the package, woman or man. You were the problem. The person just didn't want to deal with you. And sometimes when you read some of these attitudes, and I can genuinely say, I totally understand. Well, I mean, I hate the fact that my ex is not a good, not being active and stuff like that in his daughter's life. But I also understand what my as I've grown up, because I mean, it's been over 10 years of working on myself to reach this point, but I also understand how he would decide, you know what, the dramas of this woman are not worth it. I I don't justify it. I still think he's a horrible person for doing that, but I think it's some of my behavior at the beginning of the custody battle made him eventually, I mean, he's not a nice person altogether, but made some of my behavior did not exactly encourage him to be a good person. Sometimes you can just give somebody excuses, even if they didn't have excuses, but they didn't need the excuses. They were not intending to do it to begin with. But then you also do something to make them validated. So how should this child support be calculated? I think that there really needs to be a limit. So I saw this request by somebody and it was ridiculous. I mean, granted, if I have a child with a millionaire and if I have a child with somebody who doesn't have money, it should not be the same amount. The child needs to have some kind of lifestyle. What I think is starting to be a problem is using children as financial using children as a money making point. So if I genuinely think if you cannot match it, don't ask for it. Because it's 50-50. You made this child 50-50, right? So if I'm asking for 10, I should be able to bring 10 to the table. If I'm asking for 1, I should be able to bring 1 to the table. But now you are a high school dropout with no job, with absolutely nothing except the fact that you had a child with a millionaire, and now you want to be given 1 million per month because all of a sudden where you live is not good enough. Where, of course it's different. If, for example, you have a child with a celebrity and the child's life is going to be in danger if the child lives in some sort of place. Some countries are just not safe. So those can be special circumstances, but I mean, otherwise, I just think sometimes it's ridiculous what people ask for. So somebody asked, I want my rent paid, I want my hair done, I want Wi-Fi. And by the way, some of them even ask for all this before the child is born. So I want all this done and all the money for my pregnancy and all the money for giving birth and all that. We haven't even done a DNA test to decide if this child is yours or not. The father hasn't been given a chance to decide if he wants to keep the child or not, because of course if the father wants to keep the child 50% of the time, then you don't deserve any child support, because the 50% that you're supposed to be getting is what he'll be using when he's taking care of this child. And so what you're asking for all this before the child is born. Does that make sense? I don't think so. The other thing I think is sometimes people tend to look at. I was talking to a few of my male friends, and they were like, "What happens is it's an unfair game already to begin with, because accidents happen, contraceptives fail. I mean, you can use condoms and they bust and stuff like that." Now he says, if a woman doesn't want the child, if you get pregnant and you don't want the child, you have options. I mean, in most countries, you can have an abortion and you can move on with your life. So if the woman doesn't want the child, it will be taken care of. But if the man doesn't want the child, what happens? I know you're going to say the same thing I always say. Oh, please, you can use a condom and you can use, yeah, but condoms bust. What happens in a case where a condom busts and the man genuinely was not ready for a child or just didn't want a child with this person? I'm going to raise my son. Don't sleep with a woman you're not intending to spend the rest of your life with, but not everybody has that. So, I mean, things happen. People always go like, Okay, so he's left me. And what we're not considering is the fact that there are actually women who deliberately get pregnant because either the man is married and he's refused to marry her, or the man is about to leave her, or the man is cheating and she's trying to stop him from cheating, or so we are not going to ignore the fact that there are people who actually deliberately do this. They either, you know, stop taking their pills. I mean, she's telling you she's swallowing her pills, but how do you know she's actually swallowing them? Are you there? She's telling you she has. I mean, there are some contraceptives that someone can tell you they have, but you have. She tells you she's been given an injection. How sure are you? So somebody can tell you all this. So my thing is, I always think everybody should be responsible for their own contraception. If you do not want to have a child, each of you take your own form of protection. Double contraception, a man doesn't want a kid, use condoms. A woman doesn't want a kid, do whatever it takes to not have that child. But if all this fails, because I mean, there is that 0.001% chance that you can use every single contraceptive together and still you still get pregnant. Some people are just so lucky. Well, I mean, unlucky, but if you're trying to conceive, you understand what I mean. And this happens, and the child is here. You, as the man, okay, fine, you are not given a fair shot because you had no say in whether this child comes to the world or not. But now the child is here. What next? For me, I think trying to be amicable, trying to find, and I always advocate for people to have a lawyer involved. The reason for having the lawyer involved is because, whether you're amicable or not, is because sometimes, I remember when I was talking to a friend who did a prenuptial agreement, which I find very weird. Anyway, I found she told me that the reason why she did the prenup was because she had been divorced before, and she's like, the guy she went to court for the divorce with is not the guy she married. She's like, I couldn't see the guy I married in that man. He was so mean. And I was so hurt and so bitter that every single agreement we came to was just me trying to get revenge and him trying to hurt me and me trying to break him and him trying to make sure that I lose everything. And so it was just back and forth. Everybody was just bitter. So she decided when she got married the second time that she was going to have a prenup. And she advises everybody to have a prenup. She says that the best reason for having a prenup is simple. You have prenup because before the marriage, you're still friends, you're still talking. So whatever you're agreeing at that time, you're agreeing it based on what you know about each other, not what you hate about each other. I don't know, but anyway, that's for you to think about. But I think that's the same thing. When you're having these custody issues, you're not the same people who lay together in bed to have that baby. One of you is, well, if you're both agreeing, if it's amicable, it's fine. But if it's not amicable, one of you is hurting and the other one is trying to ignore the fact that this person is hurting. So whatever is happening, whether it's conscious or not, it's more tit for tat and trying to hurt each other. So it's, for me, I think you need a neutral party. You really need a neutral party. Of course, lawyers also make money and sometimes they just fuel the fire for the sake of doing it, but at least there's a legal way of handling these things. So I will have one of my good people. I told you I'm going to share all my network. You just subscribe. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss out on meeting people from my network. I am going to share one of my very good friends, who is actually two of my very good friends. One is a lawyer in Switzerland. One is a lawyer in Kenya. And this person will help us with these two people will help us with understanding how the legal system works and where to go, where to get answers, and just how to handle this. Because me, I'm giving you my perspective as a layman, as a mother who is raising a child who the father is not involved in the raising of the child. So I strongly advocate for child support because I'm like, excuse me, I'm raising this child, I'm doing all this. I need you to participate so that one day I can tell the child, listen, your father was not there, but he paid for me to be able to raise you. I don't want my child feeling like she was such a nobody that the father was not even involved in her life, you know? He will still have a lot to answer for because my daughter asked a lot of questions. But at least I have given him the shot, and I think every person deserves that shot. So we should not stand in the way of this. This thing of telling children their father is dead or their father was hit by a truck or stuff like that. We will find a child who's going to tell you, show me where he was buried, and don't go taking children to strangers' graves. You're going to bring bad curses on your children. And imagine if your child ends up marrying their brother because you've been isolating them. And nowadays, kids, by the way, they meet and start having babies before you even meet the boyfriend. So you will find yourself in trouble. Anyway, so I'll keep you posted. I'm going to find the information about this. Okay, thank you.